The trial of Noor Salman entering its fourth week. On Thursday, the government resting its case against the wife of Pulse nightclub gunman Omar Mateen. Tomorrow, it's her defense team's turn to prove to the 12-person jury their client is innocent. And Mike, as you kind of look at this case and think where they're going to go, what comes to mind and how they will present their information to the jury?
Well, the map that the defense outlined during opening statements was they're going to portray Noor Salman as being this very simple woman, a low IQ. I think they said she had an IQ of 84, and that they are going to claim that she was very susceptible, among the highest percentile of being susceptible to making a false confession. In addition to just this simpleness, and with that, the idea that she could have had no idea what her husband, Omar Mateen, was up to. They want to play off that things were going really good in her life. And they said that repeatedly during opening statements. Things were really turning around for Noor Salman. And I think part of the reason they really wanted to hit home with that, because one of the very suspicious things that the government's case outlined is, regardless if she knew what her husband was plotting, suddenly she became the beneficiary of these ridiculous shopping sprees, spending in a period of just a couple weeks the family's entire annual salary. And so, if anything, as we're talking, how can you not know, holy cow, all of a sudden we're just blowing the bank open here. Right. And they are just going to try to portray this, I believe, is that she was just finally, for the first time in her life, things were going good.
Yeah. I mean, did they hit the lottery? I mean, what, you know what I mean? Like, what was going through her mind on that, as far as she knows what her husband does for a living?
I think they're going to suggest, I think that he may have gotten accepted into the police academy, and may have said, well, he's about to have a better job. Is the jury going to make that connection that all of a sudden, just because you're going to the police academy, you can now double your expenditures? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, Whitney, you know, a big part of the defense and what they're trying to disprove in this is her confession to the FBI agent. How will they go about doing this?
Well, first off, it's important to keep in mind they don't have to prove or disprove anything. And that's not me saying that they're not going to put on a case here. They most certainly are. But again, it's the government's burden, and this isn't going to come down to whether or not the jury believes one side more than the other. This is going to come down to whether or not there's reasonable doubt. So, you know, they're going to present, as Mike has explained, I think a lot in terms of, you know, for you or I or Mike, we would probably know what our spouse was making, and we would probably be involved in the finances, and we would probably ask a lot of questions in terms of what are we going to do next week when we don't have any more money and we're in a lot of debt. I'd expect the defense in this case to largely focus on the fact this is a woman who comes from a place where that's not her world. She's financially dependent on this man. She's abused by this man. She's isolated from the world, and she's lower level intellectual functioning. And so all of those factors are going to play into the fact you maybe should have known something was going on. I should have known something was going on, but it doesn't mean she should have known something was going on. And more so, her life was going well, so she's not going to look the gift horse in the mouth when they're out shopping and he's buying her jewelry after he's been a jerk to her.
And you've been watching them in court and Noor Salman's reactions. How has she been throughout this halfway point, as we can call it?
I would say when the jury's in the room, she seems very flat, very unemotional. There are times when the jury's out of the room, she gets very animated with her lawyers. Not that she's mad at them. There's been times where, like, there's been an FBI agent testifying, and although I haven't actually heard her words, you get the sense that she's frustrated with what this FBI agent is saying on the stand, and she wants her attorneys to know, you need to grill him about this.
And Whitney, you know, a lot of people have been asking me on Facebook, on Twitter, reaching out to us, is she going to take the stand? Is Noor Salman going to take the stand in this case? If you were her defense, what would you do?
I'm a criminal defense attorney. I have been for 14 years, and I am very rarely in a position where, even if I emphatically believe my client is innocent, factually, never mind the government can prove it or not, I rarely want them to take the stand. And the reason being is, you know, she's already in a fishbowl, okay? Everything she does is going to be construed with an air of suspicion. Even if the jury is told, you know, she's presumed innocent, she's going to be viewed with an air of suspicion. So anything she says, even if it's not attributable to not telling the truth, but just kind of sounds like it doesn't make sense, could be construed as her not telling the truth by the jury. And it's just a risk defense attorneys usually try to encourage defendants not to take. mistake. It is her ultimate right to make the decision. In other words, it's not her attorney's decision, it's her decision constitutionally. But I don't know if I would expect in this case that that's something we should expect to see, is her testifying.
I would wonder if her defense attorneys truly believe she is the simple, easily manipulated person that they claim she was with the FBI. Do they want to get a prosecutor cross-examining her?
Absolutely, absolutely. They'd have full reign all over her in terms of being able to try to trip her up, and I don't think it's a chance that they're probably wanting to take.
And I know we keep talking about the charge of aiding and abetting, but she is also charged with obstruction of justice. In your eyes, Whitney, do you think that the government has more evidence on that charge than the aiding and abetting charge?
Well, the obstruction charge rests on the government's put forth a few theories in terms of things that she said, like he only owned one gun, when that was proven to not be true. You know, things of that nature that are in her statement. Again, the statement in this case is everything. The jury either buys that these, what the FBI has written down, not her, and what's not recorded. They either buy that that's what she said and that they're not taking liberties with it, or just have made mistakes, or there's perception or bias that's played into how they've portrayed what she said, or they buy that, you know, this is really what she meant, and maybe then they are going to find that there's obstruction. I think that their case is equally weak as to both counts. How a jury is going to see it's a whole other matter.
And how important would closing arguments be in this case? We know we've seen these witnesses come forward and all that, but how important is it to have that final word and to get that into the jury's head?
In trial work, a lot of times we talk about the concepts of primacy and recency. And so it's huge if you get to have the last word. You know, you want to be that very important, you want to be in that very important moment with a jury where what you said they hold on to, and it's the last thing they heard, so they're more likely to remember it. It's going to be very important in this case for the government and for the defense to put together all of these different facts that have been put in front of them. And for the defense, I guess I mean too, to be able to attack it in terms of being like, listen, this is what you saw this, you saw that, you know, yada, 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 but it's not there. You saw all these things and that's great, but it's not there. And for the government, for them, it's going to be important to be able to say, let's make this make sense in terms of full picture, not just the separate facts. What's the full picture here? And she's guilty. That's going to be their argument, obviously.
And Mike, I know we've learned a lot from the government's evidence that they've put into this case. When you think about what the defense is going to be putting into evidence and the witnesses that they're going to be calling, what do you expect to see? Anything new that we have not seen before?
I mean, I think the biggest witness for the defense that we believe is coming is an expert in false confessions. Because, as we said earlier, I think this case really is going to hinge on if the jury believes that she said the words that are in that statement written by the FBI, it's game over for her. The defense needs to show that those weren't her words or suggest that they may not be her words. And the only way to really do that is someone who, with an air of scientific credibility, can lay out the possibility that a human being would say things that they don't mean or that aren't true.
What do you think the outcome of this case will be?
Oh, I personally believe that there's reasonable doubt here, but I'm not one of the jurors on this trial. And so there's no way that I can insert myself into the mind of a juror. But I think she's legally not guilty at a minimum, if not factually innocent.
And again, News 6 is and has been in the courtroom every day, covering every facet of this trial. Just head to clickorlando.com/Noor Salman trial to read about every development that's happened up to this point. There, we also hold 3 live stream discussions with our legal analyst breaking down the new information. Those happen at 8:30 a.m., 12:30 p.m., and 6:30 p.m. Again, the defense begins calling its witnesses tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. That'll do it for us this morning on The Weekly. For the latest news, weather, and traffic updates every day, just head to clickorlando.com. I'm Justin Mormouth. Have a great Sunday.